All right, good evening. This is the March 17th, 2021 Cottage Grove City Council meeting, which I'm calling to order. Before we move to the pledge, I do have a quick statement to read. So tonight, the City Council is meeting in person as the council chambers are now set up to ensure adequate and necessary social distancing measures can be followed. Because of the reduced capacity of our council chambers and recognizing some residents may be more comfortable attending the meeting virtually, we continue to provide for public input via Zoom. Please visit our website at cottagegrovemn.gov. Click on the Public Meetings Quick Link box and then click on the March 17, 2021 meeting. We want to be transparent, accessible, and inclusive, and we hope these measures will accommodate everyone who wishes to participate in our open and public meetings. So the next item on our agenda now is the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, will the clerk please do the roll?
Councilmember Mills.
Here.
Councilmember Dennis.
Here.
Councilmember Thiede.
Here.
Councilmember Olson.
Here.
Mayor Bailey.
Here. The next item on our agenda this evening is open forum. This is the opportunity for anybody that wants to speak on anything that is not on tonight's agenda is welcome to do so at this time. We have two ways of doing that. Obviously, one is somebody signing up out in the entryway here, which nobody did. And then there's another option for anybody that would like to speak that is watching us virtually. So if there is somebody out there that wants to speak to us this evening in open forum, if you want to either raise your hand using the icon or send a text. There are some people out there, but I'm not thinking it's anybody that's going to speak. Anybody at all? All right, I don't see anybody doing it, so I'm going to go ahead then and close the open forum, and we'll move to number 5, which is adoption of the agenda.
Motion to move the agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Dennis, second by Councilmember Thiede. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is 6 is presentations. There are none this evening. 7 is consent calendar. Councilors, anything you want to pull on consent?
I'll pull H.
You're going to pull H? Okay. Anything else? All right, seeing none. H is the 70th Street no parking zone. Councilmember Thiede.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring this up because I often travel on 70th Street, especially like when kids are sledding and everything else, and they're right up by the road, and everybody, or like soccer, and everybody's parking, you know, on quite a busy road, right on the side of the road and everything. And so this actually is I believe it's because there was some part of that was no parking anyway, right, on 70th Street, and this is just taking it all the way to Ideal, or Inwood, I mean.
Ryan?
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Thiede. So this specific item tonight is for a no parking zone, kind of in the proximity of Inwood Avenue. It was brought up at a previous council meeting when we had that public hearing for vacating part of Inwood and the sightline concerns when people park immediately there. So what staff did is looked at what is the sightlines for that speed of roadway and worked with the county, and they were supportive of this no parking resolution. It doesn't cover the entire corridor. Right now, the no parking would be west of Hinton with that new work they did in 2017. I believe that's the only other location that has no parking, but this is just specifically on either side of Inwood Avenue.
Okay, so, let's see. So I thought there where you go into Highlands Park, what road is that? Idson. So isn't it no parking from that point now all the way to Inwood? Because I'm pretty sure there's the no parking signs there, right? But people still kind of park there.
Yeah, I believe there may be no parking as you get closer down by the park, but there was this section that was least according to what the county had for approved, I guess, resolutions, not in the specific area of Inwood Avenue.
And that was also for sightlines. I mean, I know we talked about the
Correct,
fact that people coming off of Inwood and looking in the afternoon, looking to the west, are kind of blinded, and there's that hill and so forth. So I can understand that. Well, okay, well, I just wanted to kind of accentuate the fact that that people shouldn't really park. There's a good parking lot, two parking lots, one that's off of Inwood and one that's there by the clubhouse, and that's where people should park, in my opinion, not on 70th Street, so.
Yeah, the only thing I might add, Brian, is maybe we should probably check just to see if the area where the sliding hill is, that if there is or is not no parking there. That would be the only area that sometimes when you're driving through there can be a little tedious, especially with kids running across, because a lot of people do park in the neighborhoods if they're not illegally, I think, parking on 70th Street. And if kids are dodging in and out of cars, there could be a accident waiting to happen. So that, if it's not already, I thought it was, but
I thought it was too, yeah.
if it's not, then maybe that is something we want to look at before next year.
Yep, we can verify that and work with the county, Mr. Mayor and council.
Perfect. All right, good.
Thank you.
All right, nothing else was pulled for discussion or separate vote on the consent, so I'll look for a motion.
Move consent.
We have a motion by Councilmember Thiede,
Second.
second by Councilmember Mills. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So if you're here for anything or watching for anything that was on tonight's consent calendar, all of those items have been approved. There you go. Here comes that second drive-through at Culver's. There we go. All right, 8 is approved disbursements. 8A is pay the bills.
Motion to pay the bills.
Motion by Councilmember Dennis,
Second.
second by Councilmember Olson. Any further discussion? All those again signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 9 is public hearings are on this evening. 10 is bid awards are on this evening. On our regular agenda, we do have 2 items. Our first item, Ben will be taking us through, which is Cardinal Reserve Zoning Amendment and Preliminary Plat. So welcome, Ben.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm pleased to present tonight another development opportunity for the City of Cottage Grove. That being from Cardinal Crossings Development LLC for the Cardinal Reserve Development. So the 2 applications before you tonight, the first one being the zoning amendment, which is to change the zoning from AG1, which is agricultural preservation, to R3, which is single-family residential with a planned unit development. The second application being a preliminary plat for the subdivision, which will consist of 59 lots for villa-style single-family homes. So in terms of location, the site is located adjacent to the Woodbury border on the north end of town, just north and east of the intersection of Jamaica Avenue and Military Road, and just west of the Northwick Park subdivision. So in terms of the zoning request, the land use on the 2040 comp plan does guide the property for low-density residential and calls for 2 to 4 units per acre, which the proposal is at 2.48 acres per acre, so it fits in that guided range. In terms of zoning, as mentioned, the property is currently zoned agricultural preservation with the proposal to rezone to R3 and PUD. So this aligns with, again, the 2040 comprehensive plan. So in terms of the layout and the plat itself, again, 59 single-family lots. The plat includes 4 outlots, 3 of which will be for tree preservation, which I'll mention a little bit later, and maintain as through the HOA. And outlot D, which is the northeast corner here, will be city maintained for stormwater purposes. In addition, the plat does dedicate right away at the northwest corner for the future proposed roundabout for the intersection of Jamaica and Military. And then overall, the development will be HOA maintained in terms of landscaping throughout. So in terms of development standards, the R3 zoning guidelines are on the left-hand side of the column here with the requested requirements through the PUD. So it varies a little bit in terms of minimum lot size, minimum lot width, and minimum side yard setback. This is all consistent, however, with other R3 developments that have come through recently. So nothing varying to any large degree that's a concern of staff's. In terms of access, so in the interim, with military still being in place, access will be provided via 62nd Street through Northwick Park, and then off Military Road through both Gennaro Ave and Jarvis Ave in these locations. However, in the future, when Military Ave is vacated, access will be continued as the McCaddy property to the south, if and when that property develops. Those two roads will continue south through the development and connect to Ravine Parkway. And then just an image here, again, the existing intersection of Military and Jamaica down here. As the Waltersdorf property develops, we'll be looking for a right-of-way and to place that roundabout in this location, which again is being dedicated to this corner here as part of this plat. In terms of sidewalks and trails, the yellow is proposed on the initial plat sidewalks. Staff is a conditional approval recommending trail on the east side of Jarvis as well to connect down to the future trail. Once again, Military Road is vacated, a trail will be located in that right-of-way, which 50% of that cost will be the developer's responsibility, as we've done with other developments along that corridor. So a unique feature for this development is, of course, the subject property is heavily wooded, and the developer is proposing to maintain or preserve some of those tree areas, which is a part of the, I guess, marketability of the site and design of the site is to maintain as much of that as possible. So very excited about that. I think it'll be a nice addition for the development itself to have those areas. In addition, the developer's also proposing additional landscaping throughout as part of the design. Quickly, stormwater, again, northeast corner, that's highlighted in blue, so those would be the stormwater ponding areas. And then in terms of utility connections, city sewer and water will be connected through the Northwick development on the east side of the property. Quickly, architecture, 15 to 1,700 square feet, single-family story with basements. The two pictures on the bottom are from their Woodbury development, which they're only have a lot or two left, is from what I understand. Which is just north across the border off of Dale and Pioneer. So it gives you an idea of the look. Be 3 to 4 base plans with varying elevations. Customized interiors with prices starting in the low 400s and 4-sided architecture. Quickly in review, so a neighborhood meeting was held virtually on Tuesday, February 16th. 4 neighboring property owners attended. Raised questions regarding the future realignment of Jamaica with the proposed roundabout, phasing of the project, whether or not there be construction impacts to the existing east-west driveway, which is on the Woodbury side of the development, and then access to a proposed community garden at the southeast corner of the property. There was no direct opposition from the neighbors with the project itself at that meeting. And then finally, Planning Commission held a public hearing on Monday, February 22nd. Similar questions raised at that meeting, again with no direct opposition of the project, with the Planning Commission recommending 6-0 to, recommend approval of the project. So with that, I'll leave the recommendation before you, Mr. Mayor, and stand for questions. We do have Mr. Tom Weiner in attendance from Cardinal Home Builders, if there are any questions for him as well.
All right, thank you. Council? Yes, Councilmember Thiede.
And this is not quite specific on the development, but I have had a couple people at different times say, well, I keep hearing that military is going to close. How am I going to get to my house? You know, and I said, well, you know, you're always going to be able to get to your house, and eventually you're going to have to come up from Ravine Parkway and through the neighborhood and so forth. And I don't know if whether we maybe we should put something out at some point to just kind of suggest that or do something on the website or you know, that we can direct people through and maybe even show how they might get through to their house and such, you know, if once military does shut down. But I've told them, well, it's going to be a while anyway. One other question I did have on the Cardinal deal, and I had talked to you briefly about it before, and ultimately, like, I think it's Pioneer Drive or something like that, supposed to be coming out of Woodbury and connecting into that, in that roundabout. Do we have any projections, seeing that we have a former Woodbury planner? Do we know, have we talked to them, you know, of how long that's really going to be taking before we probably see that come down into that cul-de-sac?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Thiede, we do have, I'd say, somewhat regular meetings now with like the engineering staff at Woodbury and to see how things are going along the border. Right now, that road is, I believe, about a half mile away. So the way they're progressing, it still would be, several years before it does come down. They're finishing out kind of everything just south of Dale Road, and then they've got that next stretch, which they're doing a master plan for right now, that area. But I would say it's several years at this point.
Yeah, I've kind of told people, that, well, it's maybe within the next 10 years or something like that, so.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Was that it?
That's it.
Okay. Ben, just a quick, and I don't know if maybe Brian, it's a quick second. Two things. One is, I'm assuming, since this is basically abutting Woodbury on the north end, and then does Woodbury then just begin everything on the north side of Military from that point on? So this is kind of the last corner abutting Woodbury, correct? I just was curious.
Correct.
And then cutting all the way across, which will eventually be other development there. And then the other question I had for you on one of the pictures, and I'm assuming, like at the very beginning, that last round of, or that cul-de-sac, the very end one, it almost looks like, is that literally going to stay a cul-de-sac? It's not going to have a road access. It's going to go into what could be a future development of Woodbury. I just was curious, because like one of them looked like it was like almost like there was a stub there or something versus a roundabout or
The
a,
road extension.
yeah. And I just want to make sure that we're clear as what's going on with this road.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, right now that is planned to remain as a cul-de-sac. It is close enough, right, where it could have been extended through, but given the proximity of Pioneer Drive,
That's what I
we
figured,
have identified a few intersections further to the east to connect into Woodbury.
Okay, perfect. That's all I had. Thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Just
How about
one other question. and
Councilmember
this-
Thiede?
This goes back quite a few years, because I had the same individual, we were talking about construction vehicles going down, from Ravine Parkway and so forth, and it's so narrow, how are you gonna get through it? Why are the streets so narrow? And I said, there was a time where we were definitely, supporting the 34-foot, and it's just that the market has taken it down to 28. But we do restrict parking to one side of the street on those 28-footers, don't we?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Thiede, during construction, we do limit parking to one side for construction traffic. Once the street is open and everything's built out, that restriction does go away, but really we don't see much of an issue, at least from our standpoint, from like plowing and access, just because once everything's built out, you don't get that much street parking unless it's maybe a special event. It's really during construction when we've seen the issues and we try to restrict it to one side.
And our fire trucks and everything else, no problem?
Not that I've heard. I don't know if our public safety director has any different comment, but everything that I've heard has been not a major issue. It's come up at our Public Service Commission meetings. And I know our fire chief said nothing that they've specifically seen as an issue over the years.
All right, great, thanks.
Councilmember Dennis?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that looking at the rate of development that's been going on and things which are planned coming here for the future, I think it's safe to say that we're going to see things happening quicker rather than later. And if you look at the city of Woodbury and how they're growing south, they've even crossed over onto the east side now of County Road 19. So I think a lot of these things are going to be happening quicker than we maybe anticipated. I think 10 years would be way too far out in the distance. I can see 2 to 3 years, we're going to see most of that area probably built in. So it's coming.
It is. Any other questions by council? Did the applicant, you want to speak at all, or are you good?
I guess I'm good, unless you guys have a question for me. Just, Councilman Thiede, we'll put in our declarations on the road in the military being closed off, so the people in our community will know that the road will eventually go off Ravine.
Great, thanks.
Awesome, thank you. All right, since there was no need to have that in, we've got two motions before us that Ben left up on the screen for us, so who would like to
I
go
would
first?
move that we adopt ordinance 1038, approving the zoning amendment to change the zoning of the property located north and east of the intersection of Military Road and Jamaica Avenue from AG1 agricultural preservation to R3 single-family residential with a planned unit development.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Thiede,
Second.
second by Councilmember Dennis. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And who would like to do number two?
I'll make that motion, Mayor. Adopt Resolution 2021-040, approving the preliminary plat for a residential subdivision to be called Cardinal Reserve, which will consist of 59 residential lots for villa-style, single-family units.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Mills.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Olson. Again, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck and welcome to town. You looking to break ground this year?
That's our plan, hopefully be building by fall, yeah.
There we go. Fantastic. Take care. All right, next is item B, which Emily Schmitz is going to take us through, which is Caribou Cabin. This is not one of those long things that you had to do, so you usually have more time. I could have said Caribou Cabin sponsored
Drag up
by or
twice.
something, I suppose.
It is frozen on me. Let me try this. We're in business. Good evening,
There we
Mr.
go.
Mayor, members of the council. The next item before you this evening is, of course, for Caribou Cabin. It is a site plan, conditional use permit, and preliminary and final plat. For those of you who are unaware, the location is 7702 80th Street. It is just in the northwest corner of 80th Street and Hinton Avenue. Of course, just next to Koch Funeral Home, and then across the street from Crestview Elementary. The existing building on the site was constructed sometime in the 1970s, so it's been around a while. It has had multiple uses over the years, insurance agent, real estate, and I think most recently it was a dance studio, but that was back in the early 2000s, and the building has in fact been vacant since that time. I'll make mention that there is currently a cross-access parking agreement with the Koch Funeral Home. I'll mention that with this proposal this evening, they are planning to maintain that cross-access parking agreement as well. As I indicated, the proposal is for a couple of different applications this evening, the first being the preliminary and final plat. As you can see on the image before you, the red outline is the current parcel as it sits. As you can see, it extends a little bit goofy all the way across to the south side of 80th Street. So with this project, the applicant is proposing to clean up and dedicate that right-of-way back to the city with 80th Street, and then of course up here on Hinton as well. So again, cleaning those things up, lining them up with the existing parcels that are also on Hinton and 80th Street as a part of the request. In addition, they are proposing to remove the existing building and construct a 583 square foot Caribou Cabin, which is specifically drive-through traffic only. But I will make mention they do have a walk-up window included with this proposal as well. The patio area is kind of on the west side, so there's that walk-up window for pedestrian folks. I'll say during those summer months in Minnesota, which are far and few between, but hopefully folks get to enjoy that as well that way. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the outdoor seating. So I'm kind of tag-teaming this presentation this evening, so I'll have Ryan Burfind, our Public Works Director, come up, and he's going to talk more specifically about the access to the site.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So for this project, I want to touch more specifically on a handful of traffic-related and kind of pedestrian concerns that have come up during this process. And as you can see, the access is off of Hinton Avenue. That is the access point today. Right now, it's a very wide access. They're going to be adjusting that to get it completely on their property. It doesn't change the southern limit of the access point all that much. It's really just such a wide access. They're taking that northern chunk off. That's really not in alignment with their property. But one concern that has been raised is the proximity to 80th Street, of course. And this really is the farthest north their access can be. There's a pond just north of that, which I know is typically pretty empty, but It's a very important pond for big rain events. That's what that thing is designed to manage the 100-year storm, because there's really nothing upstream or downstream from a ponding perspective to manage water. So this is really where their access needs to go. We did look, of course, at like the traffic counting that we have, because the concern would be, really the only concern from a true traffic standpoint is that traffic would back up at the Hinton Avenue signal and block this entrance during like a peak time and a very busy time. Based on the historical traffic counts we had, it wasn't a major point of concern. And in terms of getting new traffic counts, it's something actually the city's doing because we're making some changes to that signal. Unfortunately, with Park High School not in session until tomorrow, the left turns is the major thing we want to look at. So we really couldn't take those traffic counts until Park High was back fully in session. So those are something that's taking place because of the signal itself, and we're plan to convert that to a camera detection. There's some broken loops right now, so people have probably noticed the frustration because Hinton has a lot of green time and it's just not very accurate at this point. So that will help confirm that. We didn't feel the need for, at least at this point, a further traffic study to predict much. It's 200 to 300 cars a day is what we've learned from the applicant at this site. And compared to the 13 or 14,000 cars a day on 80th and 7,000 cars a day on Hinton, it's not a major increase for what people experience out there. Another concern was with basically the access point crossing a trail and pedestrians. Unfortunately, being in town, that is part of the trail along a roadway. You have to have access points that cross it. Right now, that trail is actually fully connected with the parking lot, which is a concern and kind of unusual. That's going to be remedied with this project. It'll just be the access point crossing the trail, which is more typical. So we see that as an improvement to the situation. And more specific on the site, the other thing I want to talk about is regards to stacking on the site. They do have parking spaces. There's 18 provided. There's a minimum of 10, so they're meeting that. But with all of the things happening with COVID and people see drive-throughs very backed up, more specifically fast food drive-throughs, that was a concern. Can this back up all the way around and out to Hinton? There's about 410 feet of stacking from the drive-through window all the way around. A typical Caribou Cabin that we saw has more like 200, so they have about double the length that you'd normally see at this facility. And there is stacking for 15 vehicles being conservative, so there's really no concern at all with this type of use that could happen. I guess the only caveat, when this thing opens, you've got that first week or two where people are really excited for a new business, then you can maybe see some unusual things happening, but with their regular business, we're not anticipating that as a concern at this point. So that's what I have for the traffic stuff. I can answer questions if there are any specific ones, or I can answer at the end as well.
Councilmember Thiede?
So as you know, I'm I'm still a little bit concerned because obviously, maybe 200-300 cars a day, but it's really, if you looked at when are those cars going to be coming, a lot of it's going to be in the morning, right? And I don't know, how many cars do you think, if they're from 80th to the entrance, how many cars do you think can stack there before, if they're waiting for cars? Not just it may not be blocked, but there could be more cars coming that those cars are waiting for. And then you've got people on 80th that, are turning, okay, from both directions potentially, because that's the only entrance to this. I guess I still have a little bit of a concern. And not just initially, but maybe further on too. And I think we need to, I don't know, I guess, do a little more studying. Maybe those 200-300 cars a day. Typically, what does that graph look like? Is it peak? Is it like 150 cars between the hours of 7 and 9? Or,
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Thiede, speaking with the applicant, obviously it is more grouped to the morning. One thing that there is an option to do is to take that traffic count data, and you can do projections on growth for the future. So is traffic going to get worse? Obviously, Cottage Grove is growing, so what's traffic look like down the road to check that, and then they can actually do queuing observations, it's called. So actually, what's the stacking? Because it's about 5 cars is what the length that you can fit between these locations. So, so that's another option if the council thought that was, you know, important to kind of verify some of that, you know, before they, you know, get into the full-fledged build and finish the design.
Yeah, as I'd imagine they may have somebody that could even do a little bit of a simulation, you know, and kind of come back and say, well, we don't anticipate that this will be a problem unless we actually see, you know, this volume of vehicles turning or and to the extent you couldn't take care of it with the signal or something like that. I don't know. I still just kind of, yeah, I've got a feeling that it's potentially gonna have some issues, but.
Yep, I said that would be an option to you know, require that, to have that be done. You know, that could be added to the approval process if there was enough of a concern, to verify it. Because like I said, the counts, unfortunately, just with timing, with COVID and with the high school, it really couldn't be done until they were back in session, which unfortunately was one day too late for us. But it is definitely something that can take place.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I'd like that, but.
Councilmember Olson?
Mayor, thank you, Emily. Thank you, Ryan. My only concern about this is really focused on the crosswalk area there. As you're well aware, there's been quite a bit of dialogue over the last number of months about Crestview School and the fact that a large population of those students walk to school. And this crosswalk gets an awful lot of use by those kids, especially if they live near the library or in that part of town. And so, you know, obviously it's a controlled intersection. There's a crosswalk there, you know, there's lights and all of those things, but whenever you deal with more traffic, particularly if you have a business there, people are on, you know, on their way to work and they're in a rush and those sorts of things. I have a slight concern that, you know, those kids might not always be noticed as quickly as we'd like them to be by a driver who could be distracted, focused on getting coffee or trying to navigate through other people trying to get coffee. Have we had any conversation with our friends in the school district about that and the amount of walking traffic that takes place there? I don't have little kids anymore, and so I don't know if there's a crossing guard that's there with the kids. Maybe that's something that needs to happen if it's not already happening. I'm just curious if that's been brought forward by the school district or to the school district. Hi.
Hello.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I can take that. I don't want to go back too far, but in the last about 6 weeks or so, we noticed a lot of traffic concerns around all of our schools. You know, especially Cottage Grove Elementary has been having some concerns, especially with a lot of kids don't want to take the bus during the COVID time.
Sure.
That extreme cold. So we've had stacking issues and everything. We also just started working with Pine Hill as well. So I've been working with Napoleon, who's the school security and emergency preparedness. And it was just recently when this plan came up, he said, oh, and by the way, you know, we have some backups on 80th Street by Crestview, but, you know, this was brought up as a concern. Unfortunately, when we first assigned officers, last week was spring break.
Right.
So
Probably
Tuesday,
not a lot of traffic.
No.
Yeah.
So Tuesday was kind of our first day, and we sat there with on mark just to kind of make observations over that 30 minutes. Most people are following the, you know, stopping, but I've been told from the school that the crossing guard does have concerns, and it's, I think even regardless of Caribou there, people are very impatient. They're trying to take that right-hand turn without stopping. So we're trying to address that. But we're started with an on mark just to kind of make some observations first. We did it on Tuesday. There was most of them would stop. You know, it says when pedestrians are present, you know, no right turn. Most were stopping, and there was some confusion when the kids were kind of standing waiting with, then people were like, do I go or don't I go? And, you know, after a little bit, they would go. We had 3 that just went through the didn't even stop for the right turn. One was actually a school bus, so. But we didn't want to sit there yet with we didn't want to have a squad yet and take enforcement, because we really wanted to observe it. We don't have a lot of solutions right now, but we are having conversations on a regular basis. We've always had an officer kind of assigned to the schools. So each of them have kind of been like, you get Pine Hill, work with the principal, work with them. You know, we're out at Pine Hill. So it probably doesn't answer your question yet, but we are having lots of conversations with the school now, with Napoleon, with his area. So.
Yeah, it does answer my question, because that was my concern, is that, you know, the dialogue needs to happen. And it sounds like that's already begun, and you're doing some research relative to the current behaviors.
Yes.
Which will only be exacerbated by this business, because if there's cars lined up on the right lane to try to get in, I mean, you've been a police officer long enough, you know people will go around, and then they'll try to cut back in and take that right turn. And I just don't want some, you know, poor little fella or little lady who's trying to cross the street to go to school, you know, end up in a bad place because somebody wasn't paying attention, because they were more focused on how do I get around this line of cars versus what do I see in front of me. And distracted driving is always a concern for public safety. But
And actually, Crestview they only have 2 buses, so almost all of them do walk.
Understood.
And they've done a really nice job of keeping kids from running across from like Hinton Heights or at 79th. When we're in school, you didn't go all the way down to the crosswalk, you know, but their principal there, she's done a pretty good job of encouraging kids to go right up to the crosswalk at 80th and crossing there where the crossing guard is. But like anything, a lot of the kids like they just kind of dart across. But
Sure.
I've been impressed with how well they keep kids actually taking the crosswalk there, so.
Well, if there's anything we can do to help, you know, in terms of resources available or you know, any other dialogue that needs to take place with, whether it's Julie Nielsen or the school board, please reach out and let us know. But that's really my only concern. I love the idea of a viable business on this corner. It's been way too long. And I certainly think this will be a very successful business, not only for the drivers, but I mean, there's a lot of adults that live near there in the townhomes, et cetera, who walk. I mean, Hidden Valley people could probably even get down there if they really,
heavens to Betsy,
they really
no.
wanted to. I mean, you know, if nothing else, have your chauffeur
On a
drive
bike.
you down. Yeah, but, yeah, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Councilmember Thiede. Yep.
Just a thought that I had. You know, again, as you do see a lot of kids sometimes go across at 79th. What if we put something up, you know, crossing lights or something like that, and make that the official crossing for Crestview? If you think about where kids are coming from, a lot of them will come down by the library on that side of the road, and you know, or from the north, right? And if that was the crossing, you know, because across 80th on the south side, they're going to actually be, you know, the crosswalk is a safe, I would say somewhat safer, because it's on the already on the east side that Crestview is on. So I was just, you know, just kind of popped in my mind, maybe that is a viable alternative, I don't know.
Yeah, it is a parade of kids walking down 79th, and you actually read my mind, because that same question, when we've been meeting with the school, came up, and Ryan will he has a response on that. We've already talked about that.
Okay.
Councilmember Thiede, as Pete mentioned, that question did come up. When you look at MnDOT's rules they have on crosswalks, for this type of roadway, you would need like the rapid flashing beacon like we have further north.
Yep.
But unfortunately, those are really intended for a mid-block crossing, not at an intersection, because what that rapid flashing beacon does is stops Hinton, but it has no control or visibility or control over 79th. So those are not encouraged or typically used at an intersection, just because it's got no control over that side street leg. So that's where we really want to continue to focus, even though it's a little bit more out of the way, to go down and use 80th Street, just because it has that fully signalized intersection that can control all legs of the intersection.
All right.
Okay. All right, that's it for the questions.
If there's any other access questions, otherwise Emily does have additional slides.
Yep, go ahead. That's what I figured.
That's okay, we'll breeze through a couple more details on the project, how about that? So landscape on the site, the applicant is in fact proposing the minimum required landscape over the entire site. They are removing a handful of trees. I know there aren't quite a whole lot out there, but the ones they are removing do require mitigation per our zoning code, but they are in fact providing those additional trees on site. So they're mitigating on site, no additional fee required as a part of that. The only other item I wanted to note was, as part of the building permit review, we'll make sure that this landscaping that is along that drive-through lane is sufficient and make sure that it kind of, I'm not gonna say blocks, because we won't be able to block completely, but those vehicles that are in that drive-through lane, at least it'll be a good visual, a little bit of curb appeal, for lack of better ways to say it, for those folks that are parked in that drive-through lane. And then I'll make mention, I think the applicant mentioned at the planning commission meeting that the mechanical equipment will in fact be outside of the building, not on the roof. I want to make very clear we do have a condition in there that will require that that be screened, whether it's landscape screening, fencing, something that makes it look visually appealing. Couple notes on the signage. I'll start with the wall signage. So they are permitted 100 total square feet on each side of the building, which they will in fact meet with their standard Caribou Cabin or Caribou Coffee signage along with their logo. The existing sign at the corner of Hinton and 80th is in fact what we would consider to be a pylon sign. So as a condition of approval of this project, we are asking the applicant to remove that sign and construct a sign that does meet our current standards. It's my understanding what they would propose would be more of a monument sign, so no taller than 10 feet and meet that maximum square footage of copy area as a part of the project. And architecture, they are proposing a handful of different materials, that hardy board and then the cultured stone as well. Given it is a smaller building, the multitude of windows that are on the building, I'd certainly bring the project to that minimum of 60% Class 1 materials that we do in fact require for these commercial projects. And with that, I will leave the recommendation before you. Of course, staff is here to answer any questions. I know the applicant is here as well, if you have questions specifically for him.
All right, sounds good. Council, I know we did some questions initially with staff. Any more for staff at this point? Would the applicant like to speak at all, or? Absolutely, just come on up and state your name and address for the record.
Can I take this off?
Yes, please.
Mark Krogh, Java Company, St. Paul, Minnesota. So we're really excited about this project. We've been working a long time on it, and Caribou's operations are very thorough. So if we're gonna get a site through operations, it's usually tougher than any city council planning commission. So they do not want a negative customer experience. So they've done their due diligence, and we figured we actually have closer to 20 cars if you going back out into the parking lot, which should more than way about double, more than double. 8 will kind of be their max stacking they'll have. So it will more than double it, and they feel very comfortable with that, being it's a drive-through only concept. The most of the attention in the morning will be paid to the drive-through. So their efficiencies are better than a normal Caribou Coffee. But we're willing to work with the city to do whatever will make the city feel comfortable as far as the traffic goes. But we're excited for this project, and like I said, planning staff has been great. Emily's been guiding the way, and we appreciate their hard work, and like I said, we'll work with you guys to make you feel comfortable.
So should the approval process make it through this evening, what's your target opening?
Oh, we're hoping to begin construction in May.
Okay.
We're ready to go. We've done a number of these already. So we got the process down. And
I've seen them around in other communities, so it's good to see.
I've probably built a couple of them, so.
Okay.
But we're excited. We're doing a number of them across town and out state too, so. And then this project, it's parking lot's already done. We just got to redo the parking lot and do some landscaping. And of course, got to tear the building down. An old man, winter, hopefully he doesn't come back. We got a little sneak peek of that this last week. But, if Minnesota, you just never know. So we hope to begin in May. But you know, if we get another snowstorm or something, who knows? But for sure, June.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. Any other questions?
Any questions for the applicant at this point? Guess not. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
Yep.
it.
All right, council. So we do have two resolutions that are before us this evening on this particular project.
Mayor, I'll move that we adopt Resolution 2021-036, approving the preliminary and final plat for a commercial development to be called Cottage Grove Coffee.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Olson,
Second?
second by Councilmember Mills. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then the second one.
I'll make motion to adopt Resolution 21-037, approving the site plan review and conditional use permit for the construction of a Caribou Cabin with a drive-through window.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Dennis,
Second.
second by Councilmember Olson. Again, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck. Thank you. All right. That was it for those items. So the next item on our agenda is council comments and requests. I'll start with Councilmember Mills.
I don't have anything tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
There we go. All right. Councilmember Dennis.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Couple things here. First, I want to make mention of the most current version of Cottage Grove reports. These were sent out to the homes, and there's a nice addition in here that talks a little bit about Discover Cottage Grove. And this is a two-page section that talks about our Convention and Visitor Bureau, which is something that is relatively new that we have started. And it's all about supporting local opportunities here within our community. On the back side of this, talks about eating local, shopping local. On the front side, there's a small letter that I actually signed on to that talks about the intent of the process. And this is something where a user fee is collected by our local lodging, 3% of the bill, which is collected, and then that money is utilized to help promote the local area. So this is something that when the mayor and I were out in Vegas, well, now 2 years and beyond. Yeah, we missed it last year because of COVID, but we found that many of the investors that were potentially wanting to come here asked if we had this type of an opportunity, and at the time we did not. So by listening to that as something that would be considered very advantageous, we're able to put together a really nice process. So we're in the works on this of getting it off the ground, and so I just want to make sure that folks that received this letter at home take a look at it, and certainly if you have any questions, you can reach out here to the city or to myself or the mayor. We'd be very happy to answer questions, and again, we're always very pro shop local and help to keep our local economy strong. So that was the first thing. And then the second piece that I wanted to bring up, I know we're going to be looking at some different ordinance changes and such this year. And one of the things that I would appreciate our planning staff looking at is factoring the proper width for parking spots. And so the reason that I bring that up is, when I go and get my coffee, and I drive an SUV like many people, the parking spaces are so close together, you can barely get out your door. And so to alleviate door dings and other challenges that people have and make it more user-friendly for folks that come to our businesses, I'd like to see what the staff could come up with in terms of identifying, a new format going forward, because we're seeing more and more SUVs and larger size vehicles that are being produced and sold these days, less and less cars. And so just wanting to make sure that as we look at our parking spaces, that we're factoring in the size of those vehicles appropriate so that it's a better experience. So, Mayor, I know usually when we want something done individually, we bring it forward here as comments. And so if you feel appropriate, I would ask to make a motion that our staff would do that.
All right.
And then I would seek a second.
All right.
I will second that.
Second by Councilmember Mills. All right. Any further discussion on this item? Councilmember Olson.
The only question I have is, being a business operator for retail businesses and driving a company vehicle that is an SUV and parking in different places. I notice this is a problem pretty much everywhere. Is there a global standard that we follow, or do we have latitude to change that or ask for that to be changed? I guess I don't know the answer to that.
Mr. Mayor, Council, generally, in terms of my experience, 9 feet is the width, the general kind of standard for parking stall widths. Now, that's the code. I think the bigger question is whether or not property owners are going by that 9 feet. So I think it could be potentially more of an enforcement issue, but 9 feet is generally that standard.
So then the thing to do is probably to make sure that our property owners are actually obeying that, and if not, advising that that's what needs to change.
Correct.
Okay, fair enough, thank you.
Okay, I saw, and I'll get you, Councilmember Mills.
Yeah, I also experienced, actually, this last weekend, not here, a really horrible parking scenario, lots of trucks, lots of SUVs, but I noticed that some parking lots had the compact car areas, so they could have a little bit larger spots in certain areas. So maybe, this is not my area of expertise, but I do enjoy seeing that, because if you do have a compact car, it's a great little sneak in. Not that everybody abides by that, because I've seen trucks pull into there, but anyway, just, I think it'd be good to at least take a look at it, see what's happening with our businesses here.
All right, Councilmember Thiede.
Yeah, and I think, well, one thing you could do is just get a smaller vehicle. Gas prices are gonna go up again, But at any rate, I think the other thing that we need to look at is I don't think we've had anybody that I can recall says, oh, let's do this parking formula for, our development here and say, oh, gosh, I got way more parking spaces than I need, right? So I think we got to be sensitive to that too, and I know there's been some trends toward reevaluating, how many parking spots are really required and such, in terms of how much land we're actually covering up with asphalt. So I think that should, probably be included with the whole analysis too. But
Well, I think if what I'm hearing you saying, Councilmember Thiede, what the answer is that when you guys kind of figure it all out, it isn't that we still are going to want a bigger parking lot. I think what we look at is maybe with whatever we're planning for an existing parking lot, should there need to be changes or find that there is, that maybe the spots are bigger, but we don't necessarily make it bigger as a parking lot in certain circumstances.
But
So
then if the slots are bigger, then you're going to get less parking.
I agree, but again, that's the issue, is then you've got, the surface issues. Councilmember Dennis.
Yeah, and I want to say too, and I understand that piece of it, but here's the thing. If I go to a place and I'm there twice and I get 2 car dings, I'm not going back. So this is about making the user experience good for people. And so as a business owner myself, I would seek that opportunity, because I know that would make my guests more happy.
Okay.
So.
All right, so we did get a motion in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And I'm all set. Thank you, Mayor.
That's done. Councilmember Thiede.
Let's see, do I have anything? Oh, I do see that the citywide cleanup event is coming around again May 1st, and we'll actually have it this year at the Public Works Garage. And so you can come out and have fun. We'll probably have some of the same things with the big trucks and the big vehicles, and Willie from Tennis Sanitation will bring his big box of candy and so forth again, and I suppose. But so that's May 1st, from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Public Works Garage.
Fantastic. And maybe once we get to that last meeting in April, you can do a presentation. And I figured you were going to do it, but now that we're finally back to getting beyond COVID, hopefully, and getting some of these events back. So, all right, was that it?
That's it.
Councilmember Olson?
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of questions now that we are hearing about the proverbial dials being turned in the state of Minnesota around whether or not we will have Strawberry Fest this year and about whether or not we will have the 4th of July fireworks this year. I do not believe the definitive answer to either of those questions has been reached yet, but I will speak on behalf of our Cottage Grove Lions Club, who participate in both events, that should we be able to go forward, the Lions are very eager to be involved and get back to serving the public at Strawberry Fest and with the 4th of July fireworks. Just so happens our public safety director is also a member of our Lions and was at the meeting last night, so I know that Chief Kerner is looking into all of the various options, and I know, Mayor, you've had several conversations with lots of different folks in the community. So I assume an answer will be forthcoming fairly soon so people can prepare, particularly for Strawberry Fest. But hold tight, we're not quite there yet. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say.
Yeah. Also, we have a new face in the crowd tonight. It just so happens that we have a partner for Emily now, finally, so the poor thing can actually take a day off once in a while. So I wanted to give Mike an opportunity to perhaps step to the podium and tell the world watching at home all about who he is and how he ended up joining us here in the city of Cottage Grove.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. My name is Mike Marosla. Been living in the community for 10 years. I am a planner, as you just said. I originally worked for the city of Woodbury for 6.5 years, and then I went to Arden Hills for the past 2 years. And I saw a great opportunity to come back to East Metro and serve the community that I have been living in for 10 years. So it's a great opportunity to use my knowledge of development and background in planning to serve the community that I've grown to love since I live here.
Fantastic. And I understand you're a Mankato State grad, is that right?
That is correct.
Is that a requirement or just is that just a benefit?
It is I don't know. I didn't see that on the application.
Okay,
but
I just
like
wanted to be sure because I think Ben has a preference, but I wasn't sure if that was necessary or not. But
No.
certainly I wanted to say welcome. It's great to have a full contingent back in play now. As you can probably tell, there's an awful lot going on, and you'll definitely be put to work. So thank you and welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
That's it for me.
That's it? Sounds good.
You want me to see?
Yeah, did you, Councilmember Thede, you want to
I've
comment?
just seen that Justin brought up the Strawberry Fest. We have been talking about that. We've had a couple meetings. We've been kind of leaning on Pete a little bit and the governor and so forth to find out exactly what they're going to do. And we've even talked about having something maybe in September if we can't do anything in June. Or even if, some things loosen up by June, maybe we'll have, maybe not the full festival, but, some different things. Obviously, turns out that we've already found out that in September, we wouldn't have the carnival because they're all booked, they do their thing and so forth. So we are trying to kind of work things out, and we'd love to, again, have it and so forth this year. But we got to see what's going to break loose here, so.
All right. Only a couple things, as you heard, we're working to see if it'll be feasible or possible for us to have the 4th of July fireworks. The Lions, as Councilmember Olson mentioned, are full bore. I mean, if we can make it happen, we actually have some of the people that donated to that event last year told us to hold the money. So we actually still have some of that money waiting, obviously, for us to use this year, which would be pretty awesome. And I know the president had mentioned something about, 4th of July being a larger celebration, which would be neat to have with, COVID being hopefully by then predominantly under control. And it would be kind of neat to be able to celebrate that here in Cottage Grove with a nice fireworks display. So personally speaking, I'm hoping we can do it. That's we're just making sure as we talk to our leaders up at the state, not even just the governor, but state police and so on like that, that share some of the information with us on what we can and cannot do. We're looking forward to that. And then last thing is kind of tied together, though. I've had the opportunity, or since they started, to attend the River Oaks Fish Fries every week. I know our administrator and her husband were down there this last week, and I just have to say the food is tremendous. They do a great job. The service is amazing. And I did notice when I went in to make my reservations today, there's less and less time. So I think more and more people are actually starting to jump in down there. And they actually did expand to add more space in there. So whether you want to stop and pick it up, or if you want to stop in well, when I say stop in, you got to make reservations into River Oaks for the fish fry. Please do so. It's an amazing meal, and we just have a couple weeks left before for the fish fry to continue. And then I should make a plug that, believe it or not, this coming Saturday, starting at 10 o'clock, you can't use your golf cart, the motorized cart, but I know Joe over here is just ready to roar. But you will be able to start golfing at River Oaks on Saturday, and the weather is supposed to be nice this weekend. So if you're anxious to get out there on the course, there'll be an opportunity for you starting on Saturday morning at 10 at River Oaks. So I'd call to check on things and make sure you have reservations, and off we'll go for a new season. So that is it. No other comments from anybody there. Just for the public, we do have a workshop session, which is open to the public, though our workshop is going to be in the training room. The topics that we will be reviewing and discussing as a group is development updates, the 3M settlement update, a community center update, and department staffing updates. So we do not have a workshop that's closed to the public, so we won't be adjourning in here. We will be adjourning once we get into the training room. So everybody have a great night, and happy St. Patrick's Day.